And the last thing I'll say, and this was the thing that really, really helped me like move on from my dad. My therapist does hypnotherapy. And about like 6 weeks into seeing her, the new one last year, when I was off sick, and I told her all about my dad, and I told her kind of how conflicted I feel, that I loved him, but I hated the things he did. And I'd been on this journey to try and forgive him, and I was doing well, but I just wasn't quite there. And she tried this hypnotherapy on me, where I got to like meet him. Sorry, that was disgusting. I just sniffed and... Anyway. And so I'd done the hypnotherapy with her a few times, but nothing like this intense. And so she put me under. And so you go under, you're like, close your eyes. And she plays this music and kind of brings you down into like a hypnotic state. And she brought me in and she said, you're going into a room now. No, you're walking down a corridor. And my mind really weirdly went to the corridor of my primary school, where I went from year 4 to year 6. And so I was like, all right, I'm walking down this corridor of primary school. And the library was at the end of this corridor. And she said, there's a door at the end of this corridor. I want you to walk through it. And then I walked to this door, pushed it open, expecting to see the library in my mind, but I didn't. I was just in this big like hall, like you know, the kinds you'd have an exam in, this big, like almost like from my secondary school. It's weird. And I was in this big hall, and there was one of those like tables, so you know those ones with you can collapse the feet and then put them down. And there's just a man in the distance sitting on that, and I was like, that's Dad. And so I walk over to him, and I never saw his face. I never saw his face, but I could tell it was him. And so I'm walking over to him in this hall, and she says, my therapist said, like, okay, I'm going to give you some time now to say what you need to say to the person you can see. So she wasn't saying it was my dad. She wasn't feeding me any lines. Like, it was my dad. Like, it was like, you know, it was my dad there. And that's what my subconscious or something had brought up. And so, but the one thing I did know was that I was going to do this meditation that could potentially help me see my dad. So before the meditation, and when I was walking down that corridor in my mind and down into the hall, I was like, what am I going to say? Like, what do I say to him? What do I say to him? Like, what do I like? Am I angry at him? Am I upset with him? What do I say to him? And so what I said to him, after all this deliberation and all these like thoughts passing into my mind, I reached him, and all I said was, I'm sorry, Dad, and I love you. And as I said that, like in the meditation, in real life, tears were just streaming down my face. Like all that like hate and that resentment and that shit that was in me was just released, and all he was my dad, and I just fucking loved him, man. I just loved him. And that's generally how I feel now. And that's why through some of this I've been able to smile and just like, because he did his best for us, didn't he? He just did his best, and his best was what it was. And I love him. And I'm sorry for how I felt. Thanks for listening.